The cost of IT in business can be staggering. From hardware and software expenses to services like internet and phone, you don't need to spend a fortune on IT to succeed. If your organization spends more than $500 monthly on any service, or you're considering signing a long-term contract, IT Enabled can help you manage your technology and minimize your costs. Contact us today to schedule a free consultation. IT Enabled, we're here to help.
Hi, I'm Tara Watson-Watkins, President and CEO of the Lufkin Angelina County Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the Connect podcast, connecting business to the community. I'm here today with my co-host, Blake Pollino with BP Media Group.
We are super excited to have Large Business of the Year winner Brookshire Brothers here on the podcast. If you've been in and around East Texas, you've known about Brookshire Brothers, but we're really excited to dive deep with CEO John Alston and CFO Clay Oliver to talk about this awesome business, how it impacts our community, and all the employees who live and work here in Angelina County.
Okay. Well, we're excited to have our good friends, John and Clay from Brookshire Brothers. And congratulations, first of all, on being Large Business of the Year for 2022. Excited to have y'all.
Thank you. Very much.
Why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners, tell a little bit about your background history, and then we'll get into Brookshire Brothers.
Okay, I'll start off. So I'm John Alston, and I started with Brookshire Brothers in 1981 in Fairfield as an overnight stalker. So came up through the system, progressed on as an assistant store manager, onto a store director. In 2001, I became a district director, and then subsequently from that took on greater roles within retail operations, and have been CEO since 2017. So a little bit over 5 years now.
That's great. That's a great story. I love that. How about you, Clay?
Clay Oliver. I'm currently the CFO. I've been with Brookshire Brothers since 2004. I made a career change in 2004, and I started in accounting, have worked up through treasury and finance, and I've been CFO now since 2011.
Okay. So you've got great history with the business, which is great. You know, as one of the largest businesses in Angelina County, how important is it for Brookshire Brothers to continue to grow?
I'll take that one. So it's very important for us to grow in really a lot of ways, both in terms of making sure that our locations are updated. The business has changed just so much in the 40 years since I've been in it. What people are looking for has changed. Formats have changed. So it's very important for us to grow. So we continue to look for new locations. And our most recent one was in College Station that we opened a couple of years ago. Have had really good success there. Very different format from anything that we've done before. And of course now we've broken ground on Huntington.
That's right.
And in terms of other types of growth, we're also right now under construction on a new meat processing plant on our corporate campus here in Lufkin. Be about $18-20 million project. Employ a large number of people for Lufkin, and just increase the capacity for the company as a whole. And also in terms of growth, I think, technology growth is something that we need to keep an eye on as well. Clay's been really involved with that. He's actually working on his master's degree at Texas A&M in analytics, business analytics right now, and has come across quite a few things that I think are going to be great for us on the technology front of growth.
That's great.
From the economic perspective, though, I think because we're so ingrained in Angelina County, people forget that we're still a really small fish in a really big pond.
Yeah. And
the name of our industry is volume. So it is imperative that we continue to grow and continue to generate additional volume, because that's what allows us to compete against the Goliaths in this industry. Sure. So it's said in our industry, you're growing or going. And that is the truth. Like we have to continue to find ways to save cost along the supply chain, as well as continue to grow that volume anywhere we can.
And you're not just in Angelina County. For those that are listening that may not be familiar, let's talk about where all of your locations are.
Sure. So to the north, we go up all the way to Whitesboro, which is just short of the Oklahoma border. Down to the south, we in Texas, we're in Grenada. We're also in Lake Charles, which is two of our southernmost locations. Have a store down south in Cuero. To the west, we got to the Texas Hill Country, out to Canyon Lake and Wimberley, and then to the east in eastern Louisiana, DeRitter, in that area.
You know, I think there's a lot of people that don't realize how many stores that y'all have.
Right.
And you continue to acquire stores, not just build stores like in College Station and Huntington, but you're acquiring stores as well as you continue to grow.
Absolutely. That's been a big part of our growth through the years. Really, the last large acquisition we had was back in 2014. We acquired a 25-store chain, the David's chain, predominantly up in just south of the Metroplex area. And those stores have performed real well for us. And, and I think, that kind of thing speaks to our diversity of our company, because we are definitely not one size fits all. We try to come up with a format that will fit each individual community that we're in.
That's awesome. So you talk about the scale, and you talk about the size and how competitive of a market is to be in your industry. What makes Brookshire Brothers different as opposed to your competitors and other people in your industry?
Go ahead.
I think the biggest thing that makes Brookshire Brothers different is we're willing to go to markets where other competitors are not necessarily eager to go serve. And we serve those markets with pride. And hands down, our people help us do that. Without the 6,000 employees that we have, we couldn't do that.
Yeah, to tag on to that a little bit too, in terms of what makes us different. I was thinking about that the other day. I had the good fortune to start in 1981 when Mr. Eugene Brookshire was still with the company. R.A. was still with the company. I really never knew Oscar, just based on the position I was at and where he was at that particular time. But, those guys really ingrained in us that came up during that generation, during the early 80s, the sense of service to the communities, and not just from the standpoint of how we service them through the grocery store, but how we service the community as a whole. And I feel like that has really transcended throughout these last 40 years. I think it really took hold even more during 1999 when we became an ESOP, a partial ESOP, and then 2006 when we became 100%. And so I think our employee-owned culture really plays a big role in who we are and how we differentiate.
Yeah, I'd love you to talk about the employee-owned culture. When you guys turned 100, we did a documentary series for you on the video side where we interviewed some of your employees, and we were blown away at how the longevity you had with some of these employees. You have some long tenured employees. I can't remember one of them. It was 50 plus years, I want to say, that you had one employee working. But
John's
talk to
41.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's
we
highly
say we've
unusual.
almost got him out of training.
Just about.
It's an elaborate training program you have to go through. But can you speak to that? I mean, it's very counter to what we're seeing in the workplace right now, where people are changing jobs pretty frequently. So to be a company that's known for this long tenure, tell us a little bit about that.
John, you want to take it?
Well, why don't you take that one just from your generational perspective, Clay?
I think we are the largest, one of the largest employers around here, and I think the ESOP culture, it has the people once they get in and they find opportunity to grow, and we try to do that. If you look anywhere along our management, we have some really long tenure, and we try to provide our people with plenty of opportunity to come up through the ranks, and we grow that internally the best we can. Seldom do we ever go outside the company for a management position, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Is because we want them to understand the Brookshire Brothers culture. Yeah. So there's no better people to understand it than those guys that have been there from the very beginning. I mean, our company is chock full of 20, 30. I'm the new guy at 18 years, right? We have so many tenured employees, and it's because we try to give them that opportunity to grow.
You talked about community, John, and that the early leaders of Brookshire Brothers were ingrained in y'all, the community, and that leads perfectly into how involved you are in community events. I said back at Farm Feast, there's never been an event that I came to y'all and said, hey, I have this idea, that you didn't say, let's do it. But it's not just me, whether I was at the city or here at the chamber. Y'all do that for everyone. So, you're our presenting sponsor for the Forest Festival, but you help with the rodeo, the youth fair, Cinco de Mayo, Little Black Dress with the Junior League. Anything that the community is involved in, Brookshire Brothers is right there with everyone. And so, on behalf of our community, I just want to thank y'all for what you do. Let's talk about your community drive that you have. You have a charitable foundation that you give back to. So why don't you tell the listeners about the charitable foundation and how much money you donate every year back to the community?
Sure, yeah, I'll start with that. So, Charitable Foundation is something that was started several years ago, and it has provided a really great avenue to help out nonprofits throughout our company. And like you say, some of the things that we do here locally are very visible, like the rodeo, like Forest Festival, things like that. But the Charitable Foundation also focuses a lot on education,
That's right.
providing for the needs of the community, whether that may be hunger, maybe situations like that, to where there are organizations that really help people out with that. It could be lifestyle changes that people are trying to implement, such as drug abuse or being in difficult situations. So we support all those type of organizations. So it's not just necessarily the high profile events, but there are a lot of things that really kind of fly under the radar that we support. We do 2 charitable golf tournaments here, and our 2 golf tournaments that raise funds for our charitable foundation every year, a spring and a fall tournament. And so typically we're able to contribute back around $125,000, $130,000 a year back into the communities as a whole that we serve.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I want to just speak to that. It's funny that when you think of all the nonprofits that we have, all of the charitable events that we have in Lufkin, you can almost assume that Brookshire Brothers is going to be up there, right? That your name is going to be supporting. But to speak to what you said about the things that fly under the radar, we do a ton of work with nonprofits in and around this area, and people truly don't realize the support that Brookshire Brothers provides when their name's not even on it. Like, there's tons and tons of nonprofit initiatives that Brookshire Brothers helps to fund and support that. And I just want to make sure that people realize that that's not like a company byline that he's just up here saying, but it's a genuine, we see it all the time in some of the work that we do that Brookshire Brothers is funding or supporting or taking care of entirely. So it's definitely some truth to that.
We certainly appreciate that plug, but that's not our motivation.
Yeah,
Not at all.
that's why I wanted to say it.
That's
Yeah.
why it's so genuine.
Yeah.
Because that is not the motivation.
Yeah.
And there's to speak to the economic impact of the pieces that are not so transparent.
Yeah.
I think we have over 1,000 employees here in Angelina County. Most of those live within the county, so that comes with its own economic impact.
That's
right? The salaries, over $40 million in salaries that are turned into houses, building projects, all their shopping, everything within Angelina County. We spend about $20 million a year with Angelina County vendors. So people who provide goods and services for us that are within Angelina County. We spend about $4 to $5 million a year at medical facilities for our employees and their families within Angelina County. So lots of not so transparent economic.
Yeah, it just trickles down.
It trickles
everywhere.
down. That's right.
That's right.
That to my knowledge, really had never been discussed. Right. I mean, of course, we're not going to talk a lot of the details, but there's some big economic impacts to just the ESOP itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why we're here. We wanted to make sure people knew about
That's
that.
right.
Yeah. We
If for no other reason, to just let people know about how involved in supporting this community.
So, as someone who comes in and shops wholly at Brookshire Brothers, I mean, I'm a Brookshire Brothers girl.
Yes, we know. And
Crude.
we
I mean,
appreciate it.
when I stick in that number and I get my little points, I'm like, yep, they're going to go. There's Tara again. She's been here 4 times this week. She keeps forgetting stuff. But, I love going to some of my store is Chestnut. That is where I go. When I go into Gaslight, I'm like a lost little puppy walking around. I'm like, where is this? I don't know where this is. But I love the fact that when I walk in, and I say my store because it's where I go. It's the people that know me. The pharmacist calls me by name. We were getting Santa photos done the other day, and the pharmacist comes walking by and he's like, "Hello, Watkins, how are you?" And he's dressed in his normal clothes.
Right.
And I'm like, you're in your wrong spot. We're not in the right spot. But I love being able to walk in and to know the people that are there, to be able to call some of the kids that sack my groceries by name, and to be able to know their stories, and they know my kids, and it's very, very much as a consumer for them to know who I am when I'm walking in as a customer. And I know that I can't be the only one that does that, and so you should be very proud of your employees that work at your stores, that do know the families that come in and take care of us, because they take care of us all week long.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
But you're seeing probably the grocery industry change some. And what are the struggles that you're going through right now? And what do you think the future of the industry is? Maybe in 5 years, where do you see that?
Well, the things have changed a lot since COVID.
Yeah.
Obviously, in every respect, in every phase of life. But in terms of the grocery industry, really, I think the biggest change has been the supply chain.
Sure.
The biggest challenge has been the supply chain and the ongoing struggles with that, from everything from raw ingredients to packaging to labor to get things done to transportation. And then you have a worldwide event that spurs on inflated fuel prices.
Yeah.
And for our fleet, we're paying $5 a gallon almost for diesel. And so all these are challenges that go into keeping those shelves full.
That's right.
and getting all that done. Just during COVID, you talk about some of the challenges. We had, at one point, we had a lot of people out of the warehouse, and most people really don't think what goes into getting a product from point A to point B. And so, we had just almost virtually all of our order selectors that were out with COVID at one point at the warehouse. So we had really the corporate office emptied out, and Clay's over there pulling groceries. Our VP of
It was not pretty.
Hey, they got their trucks.
They got trucks.
They got their trucks. They might have got criticized a bit, but they got it. But and just officer level people, clerk level people, everybody going over there to chip in to get that done. So those supply constraints continue, to this day. And as you can see in the grocery store when you shop, it fluctuates.
Yeah.
Right now it's pet food. Pet food has been under supply strains for really over a year now, and that continues. So I see that continuing to some extent or another over the course of at least the next year, from everything that we're seeing. Over the course of 5 years, from what I see, one thing I think that kind of changed people's outlook on some things and the way they shop is, it's got to be convenient. Mm-hmm. They've got to be able to get in, get out, find the essentials that they need. And from my perspective, it seems like that people have recognized more like what the traditional grocery store provides in terms of a total solution, rather than feeling like they have to go to a large format store for one thing, a supermarket for another, maybe a dollar store for a fill-in. They have come to realize, typically, at least in our locations, that we can provide everything that they need, and they value that.
That's right.
And so I see that trend continuing, the eat-at-home trend continuing. With inflation, having done what it's done, and that continues to be an issue. I see inflation maybe leveling out at where we are. I don't think we'll ever get back to where we were, before all the issues that have come up. But I think people are looking for that overall better value in spending their food dollars, and I think that's going to continue.
Yeah. Are you starting to see a transition? It might be anecdotal, but it feels like people are starting to trend more to that neighborhood grocer now and wanting to be in a high quality grocer. I see places like Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, and people are looking for more of that high quality grocery experience now, as opposed to just as cheap as I can possibly get it. And is that a trend that's happening in the grocery world?
So we do see that we were able to retain much more of of those COVID consumers than the industry as a whole. And we do attribute that a lot to our rural nature, as to where people now realize, hey, I can go to my local neighborhood supermarket and get everything that I need,
Right.
rather than traveling into town and fighting the fight.
Yeah.
You know, so one thing that, back to the COVID transition, we measure, our industry measures food consumption as a whole in two parts: food at home, food away from home. Food at home is our industry. Food away from home is going to be restaurants, fast food, all that. Prior to COVID, it was about 60-40, 60 away from home, 40 at home. And now that's it's about 50-50 now, now that things have opened back up and but restaurants still have the same struggles we have as far as labor, cost, all that, but
Sure.
but they're facing it a little more so than what we are in the grocery industry. And people just really aren't, they're not going back to restaurants like they thought they would. It's easier to cook. The inflation seems to be hitting the restaurants harder than the grocery stores. So we have retained a lot of that COVID consumer, and we do feel like that they're realizing that, hey, that neighborhood market it's a whole lot easier to get in and out. I can save a little money. So.
Well, and I think that people during COVID realized how important it is to sit around a table and
Yep.
to talk to your family, and
Yep.
that, you know, we can cook a meal and eat on it for a couple of days, and we can sit and talk about our day. And
Yep.
I think it kind of, you know, we say all the time, COVID, unfortunately, was one of the best things that could have happened to
That's
a lot
right.
of us. It really refocused.
That's right.
A
reset.
It was a reset button. Yeah. And I hate that it happened the way it did, but it really did reset a lot of the family structure, I think.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up as well, Tara. You know, definitely since COVID, we've seen more of a focus on the family, you know, family gatherings. You know, really every holiday that has taken place, you know, since COVID, we just see more and more of a spike in terms of our overall traffic, which tells us, you know, people are celebrating, you know, with
That's
their
right.
families and their friends. And they're putting more value on getting together rather than just, you know, running from place to place at 90 miles an hour and just trying to get everything fit in.
Yeah. I think people needed to be reminded when you were told you couldn't go be around people, how
Yeah.
important people are.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So for our listenership, primarily Angelina County, East Texas, and our random Irish listeners,
friend.
we have
We have a friend in Ireland that listens to us all the
Hello,
time.
Ireland.
yeah, we still don't know who you are. Please email me. It's blake@blakepollino.com. I really want to know where you are and how you came about this podcast, but they download every single week and listen. So
That's awesome.
they get a shout out a lot of episodes. But for most of our listeners, it's right here in East Texas, Lufkin, Angelina County. So you have a couple of new projects happening here. So the Huntington location and then a new Lufkin location as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you want to take that one, Clay?
Yep. So we acquired the old Scenic Acres behind Palms Shopping Center, and of course Lufkin. People don't realize Lufkin's probably our most complex market because we are here already and we have a number of operations. So we've been looking for quite some time that best spot to service South Lufkin and Southeast Lufkin. And so we settled on this particular spot, and it's the old El Chico's and the mobile home park. And so we're excited. It's 21 acres total. We hope to. I don't want anybody holding me to this, but we hope to be pushing ground on that probably a year from now.
Okay.
Great.
Awesome.
So
Is that going to be a concept similar to like your College Station or a more traditional concept?
it will be a combination of that. Yeah.
Awesome.
So as of now, we have a venue planned. Probably not amphitheater seating like we have at College Station, but there will be a venue aspect to it for
That's
sure.
great.
Very cool. And then so you have a new location in Huntington as well, where you've been for a
Huntington.
very long
That's
time.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. We're super excited about that. Huntington's a great market for us.
Yeah.
We love Huntington. We've served that community for a number of years now, and it was time for us to do a new build in there and upgrade a little bit. So we're really excited about that. That's well underway.
Okay.
like John mentioned earlier, a project that most people can't see is on our campus there at the distribution centers, a meat processing facility, which again will help us to shave some costs out of that supply chain.
That's great.
Which will better allow us to service our consumers.
That's awesome.
Well, we appreciate all that you do for the community and for your vision that continues to grow. And we look forward to watching what Brookshire Brothers has in store for many years to come. So thank you for joining us today. And congratulations on being the large business of the year.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you
We
very
really
much.
appreciate it.
Congrats. Thank y'all for joining us. Appreciate your time. And I want to thank you so much for listening to the podcast again this week. Do us a favor and share this episode wherever you found it. There are tons of people who may not know about this podcast and are interested in this type of storytelling that we do every week. And if you want to watch the video version of this podcast, it's available on the Chamber YouTube channel and on the Chamber Facebook page. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.